Unlocking the Hidden Truth, How an Unexpected Discovery Revealed 3 Life-Changing Secrets of Love. Emily stood in the dim light of the back room of the family bookstore, her fingers tracing the spines of forgotten tomes. Dust motes danced in the air, and she could almost hear the echoes of laughter and animated conversations from years gone by. But today, under the weight of her family's expectations, the air felt thick with unfulfilled dreams. She had sacrificed her passion for art, burying it beneath the pressing responsibility of keeping the bookstore alive. Each day felt like a surrender, one more shelving of books, one more placating smile for customers turned strangers. As rain drummed softly against the window, Emily leaned back, the shelves creaking under her weight. She noticed a tattered book, its cover faded and torn, nearly hidden in the shadows. Curious, she dusted it off and opened it, revealing exquisite love letters penned by an artist long forgotten. Each word resonated deep within her soul, igniting fading embers of a dream she thought extinguished long ago. The letters unfolded tales of passion, heartbreak, and bittersweet resolutions. They mirrored her own journey of longing and stifled creativity. But as she devoured the artist's sentiments, her heart sank under a growing dread. Back home, her family was steeped in financial turmoil. The bookstore, a heritage weighed down by memories, was faltering. Family dinners flooded with anxiety about another unpaid invoice felt like a leaden cloud over her heart. Duty loomed larger than her dreams. Did she really have the right to pursue her art when the very foundation of her family's legacy crumbled? The question preyed on her mind like a relentless specter, each day growing louder. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by desperation, Emily devised a community art exhibition inspired by the letters, an attempt to rekindle interest in the bookstore while also embracing her suppressed creativity. The idea was exhilarating, yet doubt and fear pooled beneath her excitement. Her family wouldn't understand. They would see it as a frivolous endeavor, another misplaced fantasy at a time when pragmatism was critical. Anxiety wrapped its cold fingers around her heart as she envisioned their disapproving faces, the words of critique echoing in her mind. Each brushstroke in her sketches became an act of rebellion. But as the days wore on, she felt the strain of clashing loyalties, the love she felt for her family and the yearning for personal fulfillment battled in her chest. What would be the cost of her boldness? Could art really breathe new life into a fading legacy? Each stroke of paint turned into a mere reflection of her turmoil, a visual representation of the internal conflict tearing her apart. With the date of her exhibition inching closer, the dread became suffocating. Secrets loomed in the shadows of her family, ghosts of the past whispered urgently at the corners of her mind. Just as she felt poised to break free, an unspeakable truth threatened to overshadow her aspirations. What if the world she sought to hide behind art had deeper cracks than she realized? With her heart in turmoil and the weight of expectation bearing down on her, Emily grappled with an existential question that would define her. Was it worth pursuing love and art if it meant unraveling the very fabric of her family? The storm outside raged on, as wild and chaotic as her thoughts, her resolution and her dreams hanging in the balance, as the moment of truth approached. The day of the exhibition loomed like an approaching tempest, casting long shadows over Emily's heart. She had dedicated countless hours to her preparations, pouring her essence into every canvas, pouring thoughts of family obligations into brushstrokes that danced between despair and hope. Each piece reflected not only her talent but also her silent turmoil. As she inserted the last artwork into its frame, her hands trembled with uncertainty. With a deep breath, she glanced around her claustrophobic workspace, walls lined with her creations, teetering on the brink of the sublime and the chaotic. For months, she had hidden these expressions behind a timid smile and routine responsibilities, but now they screamed for recognition. Would her family see the beauty, or only the folly? Would they understand that this was not just a venture, but a shot at reclaiming something lost. As she approached the door of the bookstore, the weather mirrored her inner tempest, a torrential downpour pounding relentlessly on the pavement outside. Visions of her family's disapproving faces flickered in her mind, a montage of disappointment that threatened to unravel her courage. What if they deemed her efforts as selfish? Their economic struggles weighed heavily on her as she prepared to take a step into the unknown. Stepping outside, Emily was met with the gusty chill of rain-soaked air, a reminder that storms could be both violent and cleansing. It was as if nature understood her predicament, playing a symphony of chaos and hope. For that moment, she decided she wouldn't let fear guide her. Instead, she would face her family and the world beyond with authenticity. When she entered the bookstore, the familiar scent of old paper and ink enveloped her, steadying her fluttering heart. Each witness that day would become a participant in a transformation. If she could confront the eyes of her family, acknowledging her own internal revolution, perhaps others would find courage in their own lives. The evening was a chiaroscuro of excitement and dread. Friends and strangers filtered in, their murmurs a soundtrack that accompanied her churning thoughts. Emily caught snippets of conversations, positivity mingling with doubt, a feeling she knew all too well. People admired her work, yet she struggled to absorb their praise, her self-worth tethered to familial acceptance. As she began to speak to guests, weaving stories behind each piece, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd, her father, his weathered hands gripping the frame of a painting as he stared intently at it. The air thickened, fraught with an unsaid history. Would he condemn her aspirations again? Would disappointment flash in his eyes as it had many times before? She gathered her resolve, approaching him cautiously like an artist braving an untested canvas. "What do you think?" she ventured, heart racing, bracing for every possible reaction. His gaze met hers, a moment suspended in time. "It's beautiful," he said finally, his voice cracking slightly as if releasing a buried truth. "You've put your heart into this, haven't you?" In that instant, Emily felt the fissures of doubt begin to mend. The validation she so longed for ignited the spark of hope within her, a warmth that washed over her like the sunlight breaking through storm clouds. But before she could respond or bask in the moment, she noticed a stranger lingering on the fringes, his eyes assessing the entire scene with an intensity that pricked her curiosity and unease. What did he see? What connection did he hold to the world she was now revealing? Emily's heart quickened as she glanced again at her father, quietly searching for the unspoken acknowledgement she had yearned for. But now, she was also drawn to the mystery of the stranger, who stood apart yet seemed to encapsulate everything she sought. The evening had become, inadvertently, not just a confrontation with her past but a pivotal intersection of her future. And suddenly, she found herself pondering a question: what if the stranger held secrets that could change her reality even further? What if he was the key to unlocking the next phase of her transformation? Emily took a step back, attempting to regain her composure. The stranger's presence blended curiosity with a flicker of something deeper, a sense of destiny she couldn't quite grasp. Each second stretched like a delicate thread, and she found herself glancing at her father, who still stood transfixed by her artwork. "Excuse me," she said to her father, her voice steadying with determination. She approached the stranger. "Can I help you?" He turned, revealing a face etched with familiarity, yet she couldn't place him. "You're Emily, right?" "I'm a friend of your father's," he said, a half-smile spreading across his lips. "He used to tell me about your art. I didn't realize you were having an exhibition here tonight." At the mention of her father's words, Emily felt a rush of warmth. "He spoke about me?" The question escaped her lips before she could weigh its implications. She had yearned for his support, and maybe, just maybe, it had been there in more subtle ways than she often acknowledged. The stranger nodded thoughtfully, his gaze flickering back to her paintings. "He had a lot of pride in your work. Wasn't easy for him, but he always respected your talent." Emily's heart swelled, a mixture of gratitude and surprise washing over her. She stepped forward, curiosity bursting as a new connection sparked between them. "And you are?" "Matt," he said, extending his hand. I saw the passion in your pieces tonight. It's striking. Captures more than just the brush strokes. It conveys a deep personal journey. His words struck a chord, forcing her to reflect on her own fears. Did her art truly convey that journey? In that moment, she realized how far she had come, yet the path ahead remained cloaked in uncertainty. "Thank you, Matt," she replied, shaking his hand with newfound confidence. "I'm still learning how to share that journey with others." "Sometimes, sharing your truth is the most courageous act of all," he stated earnestly, as if dropping a stone into the still waters of her conviction. "Your father, he might seem stoic, but he recognizes authenticity. That can change everything." The air thickened again, as if she stood on the edge of a cliff, contemplating a leap. She inhaled deeply, emboldened by this new perspective. "Do you really think so? That this part of me is worth pursuing?" "Absolutely. But you must make that choice, not just for him, but for yourself." His eyes held hers steady, something in his gaze urging her to dig deeper within her own convictions. As Emily processed his words, she felt the weight of possibility pressing against her chest. What if pursuing her art was a calling, not solely for external validation but as a pathway to her own growth? What if Matt could help her navigate this unexpected junction? "Can you tell me more about my father?" she asked, feeling a bubbling sense of urgency. "I want to understand." Matt shared stories of her father's youth, of dreams he had buried under responsibility and hard living. He detailed heartbreaks and triumphs, illustrating a more nuanced portrait of the man she had often found hard to connect with. Those tales of resilience further emboldened Emily's own resolve to embrace vulnerability. Just then, as they spoke, Emily caught her father's eye from across the crowd. A soft smile crossed his lips, a subtle nod of understanding. Perhaps he recognized too the bridge they were constructing between them, but Matt's gaze drew her back, a flicker of determination igniting as he continued, "I can help you meet people who can elevate your work, connect you further into the art community." A surge of excitement mixed with fear coursed through her. Did she dare reach out further, even as vulnerabilities resurfaced? "Let me think about it," she heard herself say, despite the pull in her mind urging her to leap. She stood at a precipice, where this interaction could become a catalyst launching her art career into the unknown or allowing her the safe retreat of familiar insecurities. As she wrestled with her decision, a sudden commotion erupted at the back of the bookstore. A glass shattered, drawing everyone's attention, and chaos that felt like an omen erupted, immediately shifting the focus. What would this crisis lead to? Would it extinguish her resolve or propel her to confront her newfound potential in the most unexpected ways? Emily's heart raced as the sound of breaking glass shattered the fragile ambience of the gallery. People jumped, whispered startled comments, while she stood frozen, her mind a whirlwind. Was this chaos a prelude to something that might redefine her trajectory? Did she dare step into this storm, or retreat into her comfort zone where fears were known yet limiting? Matt squeezed her shoulder, a small but powerful gesture that anchored her as the commotion unfolded. "Let's check it out," he suggested, his voice steady and reassuring. With him guiding her, she found the strength to push through the crowd, taking one hesitant step after another. As they maneuvered past a scattering of guests and fluttering pages of open books, Emily could already feel anticipation mingling with anxiety. With each footfall, she became acutely aware of the transformative shift she was embarking on tonight, uncertainty nudging her closer to revelation. Reaching the back of the bookstore, they discovered a group huddled around a nearby table. The glass, a delicate wine goblet, now lay in shards on the floor, glinting under the soft lighting. A woman stood at the center of the tableau, flustered and apologetic, her cheeks flushed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to," she stammered, her voice shaky. Emily's instincts kicked in. "Are you all right?" she asked, stepping forward with genuine concern. The woman looked up, startled, and nodded, her gaze darting to the remnants of the shattered goblet. "I'm fine, really, it's just I was so lost in the art, it took me by surprise." The acknowledgement struck a note within Emily. "Art has that power," she said, her own voice gaining clarity as she remembered Matt's words about authenticity. It captures emotions we often struggle to express. Matt nodded in agreement, joining in. What's your name? Laura, she replied. I've always wanted to connect with people through art, but I've been afraid. Something in Emily shifted at that admission. Here was another soul sharing a vulnerability wrapped in chaos. You're not alone, she said, her own fears boiling beneath the surface yet challenging her to dive deeper. Connecting through authenticity is the first step. The words ignited a flicker of courage in Emily, and she felt ready to reveal her aspirations. I'm trying to pursue my art, to share my journey. I just met someone who opened my eyes to how important that is. Laura's eyes widened. Really? It's a tough path to tread, isn't it? But isn't it worth it if it leads to something beautiful? Their shared moment felt surreal, a microcosm of the artistic world Emily had longed to inhabit. Matt stood a step away, watching no longer just a stranger but a guide showing her the layers of acceptance. He had unwittingly pushed her to confront hidden parts of herself she had ignored for so long, while the shadows of doubt loomed over her. Emily felt a tentative hope unfurl. That shared chaos, the chance to uplift each other, was what it meant to be part of the art community. Perhaps this could be the beginning for all of us, Emily suggested, inspired. From chaos can come new opportunities. As they spoke, laughter began to bubble through the once tense atmosphere, and Emily realized the shaking worry within could transform into something profound if she embraced it rather than retreat from it. With newfound clarity, she turned to Matt. I think I'd like to explore those connections you mentioned, she said, her voice resolute. Just then, as excitement filled her chest, she caught her father's eye again and he remained, watching, open and curious. The question of what her next step would be reverberated within her. Was she ready to commit to a more authentic expression of herself? Before she could surface her thoughts, the bookstore door creaked open, adorned with an unexpected arrival, a man swaddled in an air of confidence, clutching a portfolio under his arm. Who was this newcomer, and what could he represent for Emily's future? Emily's gaze fixated on the newcomer as he entered the bookstore with an effortless confidence that seemed almost tangible. The way he carried his portfolio, a sleek, well-worn case, imbued him with an aura of authority that both intrigued and intimidated her. In the backdrop of vibrant conversations and the residual tremor of chaos, he stood like an enigmatic statue, challenging her to step beyond the illusion of safety she had constructed. Do you think he's another artist? Matt mused quietly, bringing her focus back to the moment. Maybe, Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The prospect of a fellow creative both thrilled and terrified her. What if he was everything she aspired to be but feared she would never achieve? With a pronounced effort, she turned back to the group, but her mind danced with possibilities. Was this man a solution to her quest for authenticity, or merely another reflection of her insecurities? The questions swirled inside her, amplifying her internal conflict. She wanted to approach him, to invite him into the world she was now being brave enough to explore, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. Forcing herself to exhale softly, she insisted that a conversation wouldn't be a declaration of purpose, but merely a curiosity. After all, she had just declared her interest in deeper connections. How could she turn back now? Gathering courage, Emily approached the stranger, and as she drew closer, she caught sight of his piercing eyes. They seemed to measure her everything, her strengths, her hesitations, and even her aspirations. Hi, she initiated, surprised by the steadiness of her voice. I couldn't help but notice you just came in. I'm Emily. He smiled. Nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Lucas. He extended a hand, and she felt an electric pulse sear through her skin as they touched. I'm an artist. I came here tonight to share my work. Really? That's brave, she said, impressed and curious. What kind of art do you create? He raised the portfolio slightly, revealing a hint of abstract canvases peeking through the edge. I focus on mixed media art, blending emotions with materials that speak to personal narratives. It gets quite chaotic, kind of ironic, isn't it? Emily laughed softly, aware of how this space had transformed from mere chaos to electrically charged inspiration. It's interesting how art can do that. I just had a little experience with chaos myself. Shattered glass, unexpected moments. It felt like a metaphor. Lucas nodded, his brow lifting with curiosity. That's a powerful realization. Art often emerges from chaos. It's about capturing those fleeting moments that reveal our truths. What about you? Are you involved in the arts? Yes, Emily replied, emotions bubbling up unexpectedly. I've been working on my own artistic journey, but it's been hard to find my voice. Finding it is the journey, he said, locking eyes with her as though peeling back layers of pretense. It's a clash between fear and the desire to connect. You seem to be at a turning point. Emily faltered. Had he seen through her? More certainly, he touched upon the crux of her internal battle without her saying a word. I guess I am, she confessed softly, the admission leaving the air slightly colder. The conversation continued, a dynamic exchange that felt as though it was weaving itself into an intricate tapestry. Matt watched from a distance, a fatherly pride replacing initial worries as he observed Emily evolve in the moment. She was diversifying her vocabulary, stretching her limitations as she gained confidence, each word bridging her resolve with realization. As Lucas discussed his process, Emily found herself mentally documenting each detail, a treasure trove of insights she could apply to her own art. Just as she formulated a question about his inspiration, something struck her. This exchange was not just an introduction, it was an invitation to embrace her path with audacity. Emily, Lucas said, breaking her reverie. If you ever want to collaborate, or just share ideas, here's my card. The card felt heavy in her palm, a tangible pathway to the potential of collaboration and the promise of new beginnings. Her heart raced with the enormity of what this meant. A professional opportunity, the embodiment of hopes, fear, chaos, it all converged seamlessly into one moment. As applause erupted in the gallery, signifying the closing of one chapter, Emily turned towards Matt, her pulse quickening. Unspoken questions hung between them. What was she supposed to do next? What challenge would arise with the emergence of this new connection? Lucas's confident gaze held an unasked question of its own. Would she seize the moment and the risks that came with it? The night unfolded, but that moment lingered like the flicker of a flame, hinting at possibilities just beyond her reach. What legacy would she create from this? As doubts clawed for their grip, she wondered if she could make the leap and embrace this opportunity, or if she would fall back into the shadows of her hesitations once again. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, a breathtaking piece of art fell from the makeshift easel nearby, leaving room for intrigue and unexpected revelations. Would Emily have the courage to face what was unfolding before her? The moment the artwork crashed to the floor, Emily's heart stopped. The sound sliced through the noise of the bookstore, redirecting all attention toward the unexpected chaos. She turned, instinctively gripping the business card in her hand as anxiety swelled within her. The collective gasp followed by murmurs painted a stark contrast to the vibrant energy from before. Taking a breath, she forced herself to focus. Perhaps this incident was a calling, drawing back the curtain on her uncertainties. She stepped forward, curiosity replacing fear. Did the artist see this as his failure or an opportunity for rebirth? In a way, wasn't he that what she faced too? Lucas was already kneeling beside the scattered canvases, expressions of concern and determination etched into his features. She couldn't help but admire his composure. It struck her then he embodied that bravado she longed for, the willingness to expose his creations to the world, imperfections and all. Are you okay? She asked, her voice softer than intended. He looked up, smiling despite the situation. I think I'll survive, he replied, brushing dust away from a vibrant canvas depicting an abstract storm. But this one had a different vision than I did. The brief exchange sparked something in Emily, an inspiration rooted not just in artistry but in vulnerability. It's great that you can see the beauty in chaos, she said, reluctantly pulling her eyes away from the artwork to meet his gaze. Have you ever thought about using failure as a stepping stone, like a pivot in your work? Lucas's expression shifted, intrigue lighting his eyes. Absolutely. Each time something doesn't go as planned, it shapes the next piece. What do you think that chaos means for you? The question hung heavily in the air, demanding an answer too raw to ignore. It thrust her deeper into her own turmoil, her hesitations around Lucas, her unresolved artistic identity, the looming fear of stepping out of her comfort zone. I guess I've always viewed chaos as something to avoid. But maybe it's just a part of the process, one I need to accept. Accepting it might be the first step toward freedom, he offered, the intensity of his gaze urging her to dig deeper into her psyche. Emily realized she was not just talking about art, she was unveiling her entire path. It felt dangerously liberating yet terrifying. Could drawing on this vulnerability fuel her journey? The applause that followed the cleanup commenced the fabric of the evening once again, yet Emily felt stilled in her thoughts. The possibility of collaboration with Lucas sent her spiraling into both excitement and fear. If their discussions bore fruit, that could establish her voice or drown her in expectations she wasn't certain she could live up to. Do you want to take a walk? Lucas asked, disrupting her internal dialogue. There's a cafe nearby where we can chat more freely about our work. Maybe chaos can be part of a creative spark. The invitation hung in the air, and Emily sensed the risk, a step toward an unknown path filled with potential, a leap into the current of artistic integrity she sought. Yet, the hesitation reared its head. What if he saw her insecurities and dismissed her as an amateur? But then she recalled the thrill of their previous exchange and the veil of shame that shrouded her should begin to lift. Yeah, I'd like that, she said, surprising herself with her resolve. What would embracing chaos really look like for her? As they exited the bookstore together, the cool night air wrapped around them like a fresh canvas waiting for colors to be splashed across it. Yet behind that burgeoning sense of possibility loomed the shadow of her internal adversary, a persistent whisper that warned against stepping into the limelight. What would happen if she dove into the unknown and truly embraced her artistry instead of skirting around its edges? With each step, her heart beat a mantra: bravery, expression, authenticity. Emily wondered if she was finally ready to take ownership of her story, but the reality of the decision loomed heavy. As they approached the cafe, she felt time tightening around her. Would she choose to reflect the beauty of her own chaos, or retreat into the background defined by her fears? A confrontation awaited her not just in the outside world, but within herself. Would unlocking this next chapter lead to the truth she sought, or draw her deeper into uncertainty? The cafe was cozy, its small tables illuminated by warm, golden light that spilled from overhead fixtures. The din of hushed conversations wrapped around Emily as she settled into a seat, her pulse a nervous echo in her throat. She watched Lucas order, the way he interacted with the barista easy, genuine. It amplified her self-doubt, each moment a reminder of her struggles to express herself. When he returned with 2 steaming cups, she felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. Thanks, she said, managing a tentative smile. He set the cup down and leaned forward, his curiosity palpable. So, tell me more. How do you see chaos playing out in your work? His earnestness disarmed her, but it also raised a new set of insecurities. Emily considered the question deeply. I've always thought art was about control, about creating something polished and perfect. Maybe that's why I've hesitated to put myself out there. The fear of not being ready, of not measuring up. Lucas nodded, absorbing her words as if they were a brush stroke on a canvas. But chaos can create space for something new. What if the imperfections lead you to your truest expression? His encouragement sparked something within her, an ember of ambition stoked with the wind of his belief. What if she framed her failures not as a reflection of her inadequacy but as a necessary layer of her artistic journey? You're right, she admitted, her voice gaining strength. Perhaps it's not just about the end result, but the experience of making it. Exactly. He said, his enthusiasm infectious. The process defines us. What if you started a project that celebrates that chaos instead of avoiding it? The idea settled in her mind, tantalizing and foreign. Emily envisioned a series of works that embraced vulnerability, showcasing the raw, unrefined aspects of creativity, each piece a testament to growth through struggle, rather than flawless execution. I don't know, she stammered, feeling a mix of exhilaration and fear. What if it's messy? What if people don't get it? Messy is where the magic might happen. His gaze bore into her, an anchor against her self-doubts. What's the worst that could happen? You create something authentic. She felt both exhilaration and terror at the prospect. It was an idea so radical that it brought forth a rebellion against her deeply ingrained need for perfection. But could she truly let go? Okay, she said, the words tumbling out before she overthought them. Let us do it. I want to try. Lucas grinned, an expression of pride mingling with excitement. That's the spirit. Sometimes, embracing the unknown is the only way forward. As their conversation flowed and coffee cooled, Emily found herself unearthing layers of unanticipated aspirations. Art for her had always felt like a solitary endeavor, but now she felt the possibility of collaboration, of creating alongside Lucas a shared venture that could open doors she'd never even considered, yet, a flicker of uncertainty remained. What if she opened herself too fully and discovered more about herself than she was prepared for? What if the exploration of chaos exposed her insecurities in ways that were irreparable? Lucas, she hesitated, hesitations creeping back in. What if I'm not good enough? He leaned back, thoughtfully considering her. What if you discovered strengths you never knew you had? The weight of his words rippled through her, igniting a sense of adventure that was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. As they continued exchanging ideas, Emily became aware of a deep yearning within, a call to action that reached beyond art itself. Perhaps she needed to confront not just her artistic fears but her identity, to redefine what being good enough meant in the realm of both art and personal life. As the cafe dimmed its lights for the evening, signaling closure, Emily realized that this was just the beginning. A confrontation awaited not only in her artistic realms but also in the fabric of her existence. Would she embrace this newfound potential, or would she allow the lingering doubts to bind her? Walking back into the cool night air, she felt the weight of so many possibilities unfolding before her. What awaited her just around the corner? This delicate thread of resolve woven with uncertainty raised a question she couldn't ignore: what happens when she dares to pay the price of authenticity? The answer loomed, tantalizingly out of reach. The flickering streetlights cast an ethereal glow as Emily walked with purpose. Each step resonated with a newfound determination, and yet a storm brewed in her mind at odds with the luminous possibilities ahead. Could she truly unravel her artistic limits? As she reached her tiny apartment, the familiar space felt both suffocating and inviting, a paradox echoing her internal struggle. The walls adorned with her previous works taunted her notions of perfection. They were safe, meticulously crafted pieces that only showcased her best. The thought of embracing chaos rattled her. Dating the idea of failure was frightening. With a deep breath, Emily flicked on the overhead light, illuminating the sketches covering her desk. They were whispers of darker, untamed visions yearning for release. As she settled into her chair, she felt the weight of her brush resting between her fingers. With every stroke on a pristine canvas, there was a dialogue, one that pushed her to confront the essence of her artistry. This time, however, it would be different. It needed to be. She would channel both her fears and her vulnerabilities. Hours passed as she played with colors, blending, layering, and embracing mistakes. Once timid strokes grew bolder as layers of paint mingled unpredictably. Doubt lingered, but the exhilaration of the artistic process slowly eclipsed it. The canvas transformed into a mess of emotions, a living testament to her internal chaos, but just as she began to find her rhythm, a phone notification broke the silence. It was Lucas, his message a simple question: how's it going? The impulse to respond was strong, but doubts surged. Would he see this piece and be disappointed? What if he thought her approach was misguided? Emily struggled with the decision. The nurture of her art versus her need for validation loomed large. She sighed, choosing vulnerability. I'm trying something new, she typed back, embracing the chaos. It feels scary but good. What about you? As the digital seconds ticked away, she felt exposed, as if showing her bare self rather than her perfect facade. When Lucas replied, "That's awesome. Can't wait to see what you create," relief flooded through her, underscoring the bravery of stepping into her intrinsic uncertainty. This moment of sharing ignited a fresh fire within her. The connection to someone who understood her journey pushed her to dig deeper into herself. Each brushstroke became a confrontation with her fears, and a realization started to dawn. True art wasn't about perfection, it was about vulnerability, growth, and connection. As days turned into a week, Emily committed to her process, each new canvas a conversation with her insecurities. With every messy layer, she unearthed hidden aspects of her character's strengths masked by her lifelong quest for control. She discovered that in this unpredictable chaos lay the essence of her authenticity, yet as Emily reveled in this transformation, another burden emerged. The deeper she explored, the more she began to uncover forgotten wounds that had stifled her voice. Each revelation was a delicate balance. Her artistic journey was now interwoven with an exploration into the very fabric of her identity. Was she prepared to confront her past? In this chaotic dance of creativity, would she stumble upon issues she had long buried? The challenge loomed larger than before. The stakes were higher, and the revelation within her art seemed to beckon her toward the inevitable. Just as she began to understand the power of her voice, the question tugging at her sides became insistent: could she process what lay buried without crumbling, and more importantly, would she emerge stronger on the other side? Standing before her next canvas, she took a deep breath, filled with the taste of courage and the scent of uncharted exploration. Would embracing this chaotic reality ultimately set her free, or would it unravel her core in ways she never imagined? The brush hovered, a pivotal moment poised at the edge of artistic and personal revelation. Emily gazed at the blank canvas, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Each unresolved conflict within her seemed to flicker to life in parallel with the colors on her palette. Could she encapsulate not only her zest for creation but also the tangled emotions lurking beneath the surface? As she squeezed the tube of emerald paint, a wave crashed over her. It wasn't simply about canvases and colors, it was a mirror reflecting years of suppressed turmoil. The first stroke felt tentative. She hesitated, grappling with the fear of what her unfiltered expression might reveal. As if sensing her uncertainty, the emerald thickened under her brush, transforming into something raw. The shades began to blend unexpectedly, reflecting her inner complexities, both beautiful and jagged. Her thoughts drifted, almost involuntarily, toward moments from her past. Vivid flashes of laughter had now become distant echoes, intertwined with heartbreaks and disappointments. The emotions spilled onto the canvas, visceral and unapologetic. But with each passing minute, the darkness grew enticingly potent. What if these memories could become her greatest source of power as an artist, a weapon against the silence that had so long engulfed her? A sudden wave of vulnerability swept through her. Heavy breathing accompanied her strokes, as though the act of painting was a confessional. She craved to unravel the secrets buried in her psyche, the fear of rejection, the pain of longing, the suffocating grip of expectations. As the layers deepened, she began to perceive the edge of a revelation. Her art was not just a pursuit for beauty but an exploration of pain. This thought resonated deeply. She was reclaiming her narrative, not merely narrating a story of triumph but integrating her scars into the very fabric of her work. An unexpected clang startled her from her immersion, the sound of a paintbrush dropping to the floor. It echoed the sudden realization that embracing vulnerability required her to let go not only of her art but also of the tightly held beliefs about herself. What if the chaos she had initially feared could lead to the liberation she desperately sought? The answer teetered just beyond her grasp. Each zoomed-in brushstroke became a powerful act of defiance against the constraints she had accepted for far too long. She was on the brink of unearthing emotions that had long been concealed in the rearview of her life. Determination ignited as she envisioned a public unveiling of her work, which had always felt like an insurmountable hurdle. If her art could embody her struggles, would she not also have permission to share her story? The implications of such a moment felt exhilarating and terrifying. Then, a question surged forth: was she ready to expose her truest self? In a moment of impulsive clarity, she dedicated her next brushstroke not only to art but to authenticity. The colors collided in wild abandon, representing both a celebration and confrontation of everything she had been. But as the masterpiece began to blossom, doubt crept back in. What if no one understood her message? What if the response was met with derision instead of appreciation? The storm of vulnerability surged anew, more potent than before. Yet who was she if she allowed these fears to dictate her creative journey? Emily leaned closer to the canvas, almost dizzy with the whirlwind of emotions. This was more than an artwork, it was an intimate dialogue with herself, and that realization bubbled up from her depths. She could challenge herself to delve deeper, stimulate the narrative between her experiences and her artistry. The moment felt pivotal, and as she wiped her brow, her heart raced with the promising sense of impending change. If she could confront her memories and vulnerabilities, then perhaps she could create a connection that transcended the canvas. With each stroke on the canvas, she began to feel the pulse of discovery, an exhilarating notion that truth is forged through exposure and connection. The painful path would lead her toward a strength she had never fully embraced, and just as clarity emerged, an unexpected knock broke through the haze. A familiar voice called out from behind the door, sending shivers of apprehension down her spine. "Emily. It's Lucas. Can we talk?" Would their conversation pose a challenge to the revelations she was unfolding? As anticipation surged, she felt the irrefutable pull toward the chaos of connection. Was she truly ready for the dialogue that might change everything? Emily stood in her studio, surrounded by canvases that reflected the turmoil of her past and the hope of her future. Today marked a new chapter, one filled with raw emotions laid bare across her palette. The air buzzed with anticipation as the sunlight streamed through the window, lighting up the crumpled sketches, paint-spattered brushes, and half-finished projects that echoed her journey. Each piece told a story of struggle and celebration, triumph and hesitation, a vivid tapestry of her evolution. When she opened the door to Lucas, a wave of familiarity and comfort swept over her. His presence felt grounding, yet exhilarating. He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the array of works, taking in the transformation she so meticulously curated. "Wow, you've really been busy," he remarked, genuine admiration enveloping his words. "Yeah, I decided to embrace the chaos," she replied, the strength of her conviction now unwavering. "I've been exploring what it means to let go and create without fear." As they descended into deep conversation, Emily felt layers of doubt unravel and dissolve. Lucas paused, assessing her proudly. "Your growth is palpable. But tell me, have you thought about sharing this with others, taking it one step further?" The reality struck her. She had been painting for her own healing, but the notion of presenting her work to the world transformed the heaviness in her chest into excitement. The fear that once paralyzed her receded, replaced by clarity and purpose. "I want to host an exhibition," she declared, a bold proclamation that resonated in the room. It wouldn't just be an exhibition, it would be a celebration of authenticity, a stage where vulnerability met creation. In the days that followed, Emily immersed herself in preparations. She curated her pieces, highlighting the raw emotions each canvas evoked. The former whispers of insecurity now transformed into a chorus of empowerment, as she envisioned a space where others could witness her metamorphosis and perhaps recognize themselves within her journey. The night of the exhibition arrived like an unexpected encore. The walls of the bookstore had been adorned with her art, each frame a window to her soul. Friends, family, and supportive strangers filled the space, their laughter echoing joyously. As she stepped into the room, a wave of acceptance washed over her. This was her moment, her triumph against the odds. She took a deep breath, the scent of paint and polished wood mingling in the air, the visibility of her vulnerability empowering her as she began to speak. As she recounted her journey behind each piece, the crowd leaned in, captivated by her authenticity. The connection she sensed was tangible. Her art, once a source of anxiety, now bridged her existence to the hearts of those around her. Then, she spotted her father at the back, transformed from the man who could only see her as a cog in the family machine. His expression now reflected pride. As their eyes locked, she felt an unspoken acknowledgement, a validation of everything she had feared yet needed to confront. For the first time, she could see the love that had been hidden beneath the weight of expectations. When she unveiled her final piece, a tumultuous abstract canvas that encapsulated the chaos and beauty of her journey, applause erupted. Emily's heart soared, satisfied not only by the external validation but by her own acceptance of self. With tears of joy brimming in her eyes, she concluded her speech. Every stroke, every failure, every chaotic moment paved the way for this creation, not just as an artist but as a person. We all have a story, and I hope to inspire you to embrace yours, however chaotic it may be. The applause grew louder, resonating with an understanding that echoed through the crowd. Around her, faces reflected recognition and support. She had proven to herself that pursuing her passion was not only permissible but necessary. When the night drew to a close, a flock of attendees approached, eager to discuss her work, share their stories, and offer their support. Among them, Lucas stood closer than ever, his pride in her achievements evident. They shared ideas and discussions that hinted at future collaborations, an exciting new chapter not just for Emily but for all she had inspired that evening. As she turned to survey the room one last time, her heart swelled with gratitude. The bookstore had become a sanctuary, a testament to resilience and passion, and she now stood before it with unwavering confidence. In that moment, she realized she had conquered the fears that once held her back. She had emerged not only as an artist but as a bold testament to the power of personal truth. Emily had transformed her hidden chaos into the foundation of a beautiful legacy, ensuring that her art would resonate through the lives of many. As she walked away, hand in hand with the possibilities that awaited, she carried within her the deep satisfaction of having unlocked her authentic self, a truth worth sharing with the world. Now is the time for you to embrace your own truths, your authenticity. You need to subscribe now to witness more exclusive emotional journeys like Emily's. This is the moment to show your support for stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and elevate voices of transformation. Comment your reactions and share your own experiences with vulnerability. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and discover their own path to empowerment.